Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. We spend so much time obsessing over the outside of the human body. But today, we're taking a deep under-the-hood anatomical tour. We're going to discover exactly how our biology mechanically responds to carrying excess weight on the inside.
Okay, let's dive into this with a story that honestly might sound pretty familiar. So a woman goes in for a totally routine physical, just a standard poke and prod. But she leaves with 3 new numbers: borderline blood pressure, borderline blood sugar, and a doctor's note to keep an eye on her cholesterol. Now, she knew she'd put on some weight over the last decade, but what completely rattled her was realizing she had absolutely no idea what that weight had quietly been doing to her on the inside that whole time. It's wild, but our biology keeps this invisible ledger every single day, and we rarely get to see the math until the bill suddenly arrives.
So that brings us to the most important question we can really ask today. What exactly is excess weight quietly doing to your internal organs right now? To answer that, we really need to shift our focus completely away from those aesthetic symptoms. Let's just forget about the number on the scale, or, how your clothes fit for a minute. We need to look at the compound interest of systemic organ function. Because biology doesn't experience weight as just one single thing. It experiences it as dozens of tiny, compounding mechanical and chemical shifts.
To really wrap our heads around this, we have to contrast what we can see with what we can't. Traditionally, we obsess over the visible, right? The scales, the tight clothing, the self-consciousness. But the invisible side? That is where the real story is playing out. It's all those unglamorous, super quiet ways our internal systems are working absolute overtime. They're managing mechanical strain and dealing with compounding organ stress, quite literally, just to help you move through a totally normal Tuesday.
So first stop on our tour under the skin, the heart and the lungs. And right out of the gate, I want you to remember an objective truth here. An overloaded system does not mean you are broken. Not at all. Your body is doing exactly what it was biologically designed to do, which is adapting to carry the load. But one of the most profound ways it adapts is through something called vascular stiffening. If you think about it logically, it makes total sense. A larger physical mass just requires more blood volume and greater pressure to actually pump oxygen to all your tissues. This extra mass demands more oxygen with every single movement you make. So this increased resistance, it forces your heart to work continuously against a high-resistance highway system. It's not just that you feel kind of out of shape from climbing a flight of stairs. It's that your cardiovascular engine is wearing out prematurely just to meet that massive oxygen demand.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the timeline of this compounding vascular tax. Things like vascular stiffening and high blood pressure, they literally never just happen overnight. They develop completely silently over a decade. Your heart works harder day in and day out for years, until eventually the numbers on the blood pressure cuff finally start climbing. It's this quiet buildup that slowly raises your cardiovascular risk long before any obvious symptom ever even shows up.
Okay, let's move along and see how this builds as we travel downward. We arrive at our filtration and storage centers, specifically the liver and the kidneys. This is where we run into something called ectopic fat. Basically, when excess energy from modern diets has nowhere left to be safely stored under the skin, your body has to put it somewhere. So it begins storing fat directly inside your internal organs. The liver, in particular, gets heavily crowded with this fat. And surprisingly, even a tiny percentage of excess fat in there can drastically alter how the liver functions. The real danger is that a crowded liver dangerously reduces its natural ability to detoxify your blood and manage your daily energy. And the most unsettling part? Someone can be going to work, raising kids, and feeling totally normal while this is quietly happening in the background.
And just next door to the liver, there's a silent strain happening to your kidneys. Because of that increased peripheral resistance we just talked about, your kidneys are suddenly forced to filter waste under an incredibly high-pressure system. And if things like insulin issues or type 2 diabetes are in the mix, that compounds the structural strain even further. This is absolutely vital to understand. This high-pressure damage, it is completely silent in its earlier stages. You literally won't feel a single thing while that structural deterioration is accumulating for years.
Next up, we are diving into the metabolic and cognitive systems. We're moving over to the pancreas and the brain to explore some truly profound, interconnected hormonal shifts.
At the very core of this metabolic shift is insulin resistance. See, when we constantly overload our bodies with processed, simple carbohydrates, we trigger chronic hyperinsulinemia. Over time, your peripheral tissues simply stop responding effectively to that insulin signal. So, to compensate, the pancreas desperately pumps out even more. It overworks itself for years just to keep the whole system running. But eventually, this leads to beta cell exhaustion. The system just buckles under the pressure, and your blood sugar steadily rises right into prediabetes territory.
And this brilliantly illustrates the exact journey. Follow this progression for a second. It often starts with those 3 p.m. energy crashes and midday brain fog, right? The kind of stuff we usually just brush off and blame on a bad night's sleep or a stressful workday. But it progresses down a steep path to insulin resistance and eventually type 2 diabetes. The really critical connection to make here is that long-term metabolic compromise directly damages the delicate blood vessels in your brain. That afternoon fatigue you're feeling right now, it can actually map a direct journey toward long-term memory and cognitive decline decades down the line.
But here is the beautiful reality of the turnaround. If you sit with all this heavy terrain we just covered, it's actually incredibly liberating news. Seriously, why? Because biology never ever holds a grudge. Your incredible body can and will adapt backward just as miraculously as it adapted forward.
And the best part? It absolutely does not take a lifetime to fix this. It takes exactly 180 days. Just 6 short months. Half a year of small, repeatable, totally ordinary choices can deliver profound healing to your biology and completely rewrite your overall trajectory. You definitely do not need an extreme detox, you don't need a punishing workout regimen, you literally just need consistency.
So, here is how you systematically rebuild your internal organs in 3 highly actionable steps. Step 1 is mindset. You've got to start treating the scale as a thermometer. It's just a piece of baseline data, not a judge of your human worth. Step 2 is the kitchen. Adopt what we call the single-ingredient philosophy. Basically, just build your meals around real whole foods and you'll watch that systemic metabolic strain just vanish. And step 3 is movement. We call this the 15-minute mandate for real life. Look, you aren't training for the Olympics here. A daily 15-minute walk strengthens your heart, it resets your insulin sensitivity, and it actively changes your active metabolism.
So the crucial point I want to leave you with is this incredibly powerful thought from the source material. Quote, "You did not get here overnight. You are not getting out overnight. You are not broken. You are rebuilding." End quote. Every single healthy decision you make is literally a direct love letter to your future self. Your body is just a living work in progress. So my final question to you is, what is the one quiet step you're going to take forward for your internal biology today?